And now, back to the Dr. A Show with your host, Dr. Will Aguila.
Welcome back to the show. With us today is Ann Smith, author of Overcoming Perfectionism, Finding the Key to Balance and Self-Acceptance. We're talking about finding a balance in life when the tendency is to be perfect. Before the break, we were talking about how sometimes perfectionists, and there are a lot of us out there, fail to achieve something or feel that we're going to fail to achieve something because the goal is set way too high. And if that happens and we quit, it's considered lazy or procrastinating, especially people who have a weight problem. But this applies to other aspects in life as well. So, Ann, my question to you is, how can, if people would understand this concept, could they set goals in a different way? Could they use that information to help people who have a tendency to be perfect to achieve better?
Sure. The term mindfulness is very popular right now, but it's a simple matter of starting to work on living in the moment you're in. So whatever goals there are really need to be broken down into today. What is it I want to achieve today? Well, maybe it would be to go for a walk without setting a huge standard, especially if you've been resistant. To really be reasonable with yourself. And what perfectionists do that get them procrastinating is that they're all or nothing. So, especially the overt ones are, where they think, well, actually both types are.
Both
but
are,
what they're thinking is, I have to do it really well, and so they spend all the time planning it, and they can't do it today because it's too hard of a plan, so they'll do it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So they never
which
get
is why
around
people
to it.
fail. Which is why I think the main reason why people fail diets a lot too. Because if I blew it today or I blew it for the week, what's the point in even trying?
Right, I'll do it some other time.
I think that increases a tremendous amount of guilt, and that guilt then adds further to the anxiety they have, and they eat even more. So yes, it does have significant impact in this.
And that what you're calling guilt, I would also add shame to that, where if people feel like they've got to do it all or do nothing, then what happens is they shame themselves about not doing anything, and then the shame requires medication, and the medication for some is food, some is perfectionism, some would be drugs and alcohol, or overdoing, being too busy. Anything like that, and they never do get down to the real issues of today. This moment today is the only one you've got.
What about the perfectionist that tries to be all things to all people? And you see that a lot, especially in young mothers. They feel that if they don't do it, it doesn't get done, and then it creates a tremendous amount of anxiety, and they have to find some means or an outlet for this as well. So I see this all the time. Yeah.
It's over-functioning, where you're doing more than you should for your own well-being and for other people. And it is another way of medicating in a way that the stillness is so uncomfortable that they just keep moving, and they don't even consider that maybe it's not necessary. Maybe the things they're doing aren't even all that important. And the reason they can't stop is because that's when the guilt and the shame and the pain comes up. But after that, if they can sit still long enough, what they find is their own purpose, how they feel. Intimacy in relationships requires that you be still. In order for you to be close and connected to the people you love, you can't be fixing them. You need to be peers with the adults in your life, and open up and be who you are and get to know who they are. So that stillness can't happen when you're running around crazed.
Very true. Now, sometimes, however, speaking of spouses or the partner, I found that a person who requires perfectionism of others, and I know that this is in your field, but give me some insight into this. These people often tend to be uncompromising and very difficult to live with. And I'm sure there are a lot of listeners out there who are sharing an experience like this. Now, the partner involved in that relationship usually ends up experiencing a tremendous amount of stress and chronic anxiety, and often leading to all types of compulsions. What are some of the options for someone who's living with a perfectionist like this, and this person is requiring the other person to be as perfect as they are, or even more?
I always start out by saying the way a relationship begins is usually the way it will end. And if someone's in a new relationship with that dynamic going on, it's very important that they not give into it. That they the perfectionist is going to be whoever they are, but the partner to the perfectionist really needs to hang on to who they are themselves, their own identity, their own preferences, their own choices, because we each have to be ourselves in that relationship. So the easiest thing is to do it right in the first place. I mean, do it, I shouldn't say right because there isn't a right, to do it authentically in the first place. If you don't, then you need to turn it around. Probably getting some professional help is a good idea, and turn it around and be yourself. And if anybody ever saw the movie Fried Green Tomatoes, there's this moment in the movie where is it Kathy Bates, I think, is the actress in it. But anyway, she goes on a fit of what she calls cowabunga, and she gets a sledgehammer and knocks down a wall in her living room just because she felt like it. And that was her moment when she said, I am not doing this any longer. So I'm not suggesting violence, but when you finally decide to get authentic, you're going to have to put up with a little grief from the other person, from the perfectionist, but you've got to be yourself.
But it is doable, obviously.
It is doable. It's a little messy, and you might need some professional help, but yes, it is doable, because you know what? The perfectionist isn't happy in that either. You know,
that's a very good point.
I had a client who was like that, a man who would come home and rage at his children for the messes around the house. And he was a wonderful, loving man. But that's how he would act when his perfectionism was in charge. And finally his kids said, I'm afraid of you. And he came to therapy and changed.
Let's go in that direction. What about the children of a parent who's a perfectionist?
They are afraid of that parent. They are. And they learn from that parent. And sometimes, I really believe there is a genetic link in it that, you know, perfectionism does run in families. Not all types do, but a lot of them do. And so kids might have that tendency too. And do we really want to raise our kids to be hard on themselves and to be pushing and pushing all the time through their lives? You know, we need to make that shift. And the way you do that is you change yourself first. You know, you look at yourself.
You start off with yourself and you break the cycle there.
Yes. Yes.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the pattern of perfectionism. Now, you're basically ascribing that it actually could be changed. Is it possible to change it?
Well, you can't change a trait. You know, a trait is part of your temperament, maybe your personality. That you've got that tendency, but what you can do is moderate. What you can do is tweak it, pay attention to it. It's sort of like training yourself, in a way, parenting yourself, the way you would want to parent a child who was a perfectionist. So we have to talk to ourselves. We have to stay in the moment. We have to slow down. You know, we have to pay attention to our relationships more than the stuff in our lives. So those are the kinds of things. And the other important thing that I think is to come out as a human being, to let the people who love you. Let them see you for real. Show your flaws. Admit your mistakes. Share your fears. Those are the things that make you into a real flesh and blood human being and not just a robot who does everything right.
Is there a big self-image issue with this? Yes.
And I think it gets worse if we continue this over time. You know, we all have doubts about ourselves. You know, there isn't anyone who doesn't. You know, that's a natural state where we're always wondering, do I fit in? Am I good enough? Do I belong? But if you're constantly avoiding making mistakes, you're building this persona of I'm someone who does everything right. And people will believe you. They'll think that you do, and they'll let you. And before you know it, you're on an island all by yourself.
So as a perfectionist, including myself, how do you know when good is good enough?
You know, I think that the things that you would notice would be you don't go beyond your own energy level, for example. You don't do things for other people that they should be doing for themselves. You don't give up a personal connection in order to clean the kitchen floor or clean a closet or stay on your computer organizing finances. You know, your values line up with your behavior. That's how you know. And when they don't, and that happens, even if you're doing a great job with balance, sometimes you're going to slip back. And you'll notice that your values are really being sacrificed.
And understand, because we tend to be perfectionists, that if you slip back, it's not all and end all.
No.
It's not one extreme or the other. You can try again, right?
And understand you will slip back because you're human, and people do, no matter what.
There's no doubt there.
No.
Well, tell us a little bit about your book and where our listeners can find it and where they can contact you.
Well, the book is Overcoming Perfectionism, Finding the Key to Balance and Self-Acceptance, and it's available at Amazon.com and on Kindle, and it shouldn't be hard to get at all. And it was released in March, so it should be in most stores.
Well, Anne, thank you so very much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Up next, learn what the new rules for being blind with comedian Selena Kopak when the Dr. A Show continues. Stay with us.